Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Spilled. We are so excited. We're recording in person today.
Crazy. It's weird.
Oh my God.
Like it, though.
We're your hosts, Kendall
And Delaney.
And we're so excited to spill history's hottest gossip with you, and we're spilling it in person. For those of you who don't know, we actually usually record remotely. Delaney's in college. I live in New York, but we're home for the holidays. So get your dance pants on.
Because we're about to get funky.
Funky. Let me see you clap your hands.
Clap, clap, clap. Clap your hands. Hey.
Delaney, what are we talking about today?
Today, we are going to be covering a topic, honestly, as old as time itself. The dancing plague.
Is that how far back time
as old as time itself, before Christ. No.
Before the earth.
Before the earth, before
danced.
the Big Bang, they danced. Oh, they did a jig. Today, we're going to be covering a topic I feel like is talked about so heavily in media, and not only in the historic world, but I feel like people who are talking about history, one of the things that they can't explain is the dancing plague.
The dancing plague was actually a very suggested episode. If you guys didn't already know, we do have a link in our bio to suggest episodes. You just submit it to the T box, and if we pick your episode, we're going to send you a spilled hat as a thank you for engaging, for giving us awesome content to talk about. We actually totally forgot to say this on our last episode, so a reason to be loyal, y'all. We are not always linear here. But the Matahari episode was suggested by @StayMad652. So DM us and you'll get yourself your spelled hat. And then today's episode was first, we had a lot of suggestions for this, but it was first suggested by @AbbyH10. So thank you guys so much. You guys keep suggesting episode topics. Whichever one we pick, we will be sending you a spilled hat. So history's hot. Check them out on the TikToks. It's just like a little thank you that we do. We don't sell them. I mean, we could, but we don't sell them. I really just bought a bunch of them to send as thank you guys. Like we send them to our, people that support us. So yeah, we're just very grateful. It's the season of being grateful.
Oh, it is.
And we are grateful for you.
With that said, let's jump into some of the context for today's episode. We are in Europe, and we're going to be kind of spanning 11th through the 16th centuries. And we're mainly going to be talking about the 1518 Strasbourg dancing mania plague.
Before we get too much into it, Dee, can you start by telling us a little bit more about Strasbourg and what's happening in the mid-16th century right now?
Yeah, so Strasbourg in the 16th century was a German-speaking city. It was part of the Holy Roman Empire, but today it is French. So it's part of French territory. And still to this day, Strasbourg still has a very unique blend of French and German influences. But for the purpose of today's episode, it was under control of the Holy Roman Empire. With that said, little throwback to our witch episode, Europe is still experiencing the Little Ice Age. So we're having extreme weather fluctuations, floods, droughts, crop failures, famines, etc. And in Strasbourg specifically, we had 3 straight years of famine leading up to the 1518 dancing mania.
And if you guys remember from our last episodes, weird shit happens every time there's a Little Ice Age, or anytime there's any sort of environmental crisis that typically would then leads to famine or extreme suffering. Weird shit happens.
Yeah, and on top of that, they did have outbreaks of the bubonic plague, smallpox, leprosy, syphilis.
No one's gonna get that.
Well, it's Sid.
Another Sid the Sloth.
I have to. The hospitals, the orphanages were overcrowded. They had peasant revolts, apocalyptic.
You got it, girl.
I know. Apocalyptic expectations. Shit was crazy. It was wild. And just to add to it, they danced for months.
Yeah, we learned a lot about this in the witch episode where people turn to different explanations to cope and kind of find understanding. So I'm very curious to see how they made sense of it this time.
Yeah, it's super interesting. That, and what cracks me up is historians are still trying to figure out what the hell happened in 1518 in Strasbourg. However, that wasn't the only dancing plague or dancing mania that we've seen throughout history, and that's one of the first misconceptions we're going to debunk in this episode. So we're going to go through some of the other dancing plagues, dancing manias that happened throughout Europe. We're going to describe what the dancing plague was and some of the first-hand accounts of some of these people experiencing this for themselves. We're going to dive into the various explanations, some of which were the ones that happened at the time, some of the remedies that they tried to use to cure it. And then we're going to get into some of the more modern explanations, what we now think modern day with modern science, what actually happened.
I feel like we can't go any further without addressing the elephant in the room. I was on high school dance team.
Right. That's it.
So in a way, this is really personal to me.
I was also, I did competitive dance for 6 years.
In a way, we feel really called by dance.
Yeah.
As an empath.
Yeah.
As a dancer. I get it.
Gotta get your... So as promised, we're going to walk through some of the first outbreaks that we saw of the dancing mania or the dancing plague. Beginning in 1021. 1738.
I say, hey, what's up?
Hello. Okay. 1021.
Oof, that is a hard one.
It's a hard one. Kjolbik. That's close, right? Biek. Kolbik.
You guys, the pronunciations are getting crazier and crazier per episode. Which, you know what? Mom looked at me today and she goes, I know for a fact she knows how to pronounce this. She goes, I have my micellar water.
She did not say that.
I'm like, micellar water.
Micellar. Okay.
No, there was way more vowels.
Micellar.
She was like micellar. Yodeling.
All right, in Kolbik. In Kolbik.
This is offending someone for sure.
I know. In Kolbik.
We're going to put it on the screen.
Kolbik.
On what screen? I don't know. This is an audio podcast.
Who knows? Kolbik, Saxony. This is cited as one of the very first episodes that we saw, and they first interpreted this as divine punishment. As promised, we're going to walk through some of the first outbreaks that we see in Europe of the dancing plague, and we'll be leading up to some of the largest outbreaks. Now, 1021, Kolbik, Saxony. Again, I apologize for the pronunciation. This is a hard one. And this is often cited as the first big episode that we see. And something fun to note is that all of these locations are located either right on or right near the Rhine River that runs kind of through Germany and through Europe. That comes into play when we go into some of our explanations and theories, but I feel like it is kind of a fun fact that all of these places are strategically located on the water.
I wonder, maybe we'll get to this later, but like obviously a river is a massive form of travel and transport, so it would make sense that like along the same travel routes, the same information was being spread.
Well, it's that, and it is no surprise that all these places were located on a river, because that's the most valuable kind of land that a city can be placed on, because it's a huge resource. So it wasn't odd for any of these places to be located. However, the fact that all of them were located on the Rhine, right next to it or bordering it, kind of led to some of the other theories that ended up growing throughout the duration.
Talk about a river dance.
Now, we have 3 other outbreaks through 1247 through 1467 prior to our massive outbreak in 1518 in Strasbourg. And in 1374, actually, in between this little period where we have a few popping up, in Aachen in 1374 is actually one of the worst outbreaks.
And so what qualifies it as worst?
Meaning the most deaths typically coming from it, the most damage coming from it. But the reason Strasbourg, we'll kind of get into why Strasbourg is our main event and why, if you have heard of the dancing plague, you've most likely heard about the experiences in Strasbourg. We have the most documentation. And again, this wasn't the first time they had seen this. So by the time Strasbourg has their outbreak, they start really coming up with different ways and theories of how to cure it, how to stop it, and they start documenting all of that stuff, and including deaths. But Aachen is one of the worst outbreaks because it was 1374. It was pretty early, and they didn't really know what to do. They didn't really know what was going on, and so we saw a lot of deaths come out of that plague. The one outbreak that happens right before our 1518 Strasbourg event is in 1467 in Trier. And the reason I want to bring that up is because if we remember all the way back to our witch episode, I'm not sure if I ever mentioned him, but he is on our platform, but he is on our socials. Nicholas Fiedler, he had his trial for witchcraft at Trier. He was the former mayor, all this fun stuff, and he was a male convicted of witchcraft, and his case is one of the most landmark cases as evidence for the use of torture to gain false confessions. So if you want a little nighttime read, his trial is very well documented and very interesting.
So what is the dancing plague? Like, what?
You would think, okay, wait, what do you think it is? That's my curiosity. Like, what do you imagine?
Okay. I get what it sounds like is like they just danced a lot, but that just seems so crazy to me. So like, I don't know, was it like a state of mania sort of like just dancing all night? Like it just seems so bizarre.
And bizarre it was, okay? They were often in like a trance state, which I think is creepier.
Yeah.
Like, you know, like in Hocus Pocus,
this
they,
is
like,
what they were.
Something.
This is what they were afraid of in Footloose.
Seriously, yeah. On top of that, in any of like the like not horror movies, but any Halloween or like spooky ones, Hocus Pocus, like everyone goes into like a trance and they're possessed. There's a lot of scenes like that in Scooby-Doo. If you know, you know.
Or like the Thriller music video.
Yes. So not as theatrical as that. Yeah, they danced involuntarily and they were in and out of consciousness from our records. So dancing. And again, like it wasn't the dancing we kind of think of today. These were more of like involuntary movements that were sporadic. And this included convulsions, jerking motions, screaming, foaming at the mouth, hallucinations, stripping butt naked, and sometimes screwing each other in between this. Like it was exactly what they believed would happen if like the devil came and possessed everybody, pretty much.
Yeah.
Yes. It was all the bad things.
Huh. That just sounds like my Sunday night.
The most holy of days.
That is my Sabbath.
Yeah. And so I want us to kind of like picture how scary this would be in such a religious world, in such a religious time.
Do you think that this is part of, I might be jumping ahead, but do you think this is part of why dancing gets such a negative connotation in religious cultures? Because it is like the devil, like being within you.
Yeah, it's that in music. They've always believed that did have a sort of conjuring power or effect.
Well, if they believe, like, I feel like music's so important in the church, like music's how you speak to God. It would make sense if that's also how you kind of speak to the devil.
Exactly. Yeah.
A different type of music.
Yeah. And dancing was often seen, yes, as a form of possession because dancing at the time was not something people did for fun. That wasn't normal, you know, like in certain places, and later on we do see certain festivals where they have dances, and every culture is very, very different when it comes to dancing. However, these were choreographed routines, they were rituals, they were spiritual.
Court.
Yes, yeah, and so we're a little pre that right now, but we still do have that kind of courting culture with certain dances. And again, choreographed, they're always the same and throughout, and they are embedded within the culture. Freely dancing, however, sometimes is aligned with more peasant behaviors. So
like when you're drunk or
street festivals, kind of things like that, where typically, intoxicated, flailing around, you know, not a choreographed waltz, you know, like that was for the more imperial or for the wealthier. But all of that aside, again, this was not just dancing. This was like genuinely looked like possession. They were foaming at the mouth. This was a plague, ditching all moral importance and views. They're stripping butt naked in front of everybody. They are having sex with each other on a street. They're having hallucinations of demons and heaven and shouting the names of spirits that they are seeing. And this was like, the reason it's called the dancing mania or the dancing plague is because they were manic. This wasn't just they danced day and night for a few months straight and they were doing little jigs and playing music and stuff. No, this was deep shit.
So Do they think they could stop?
No. And that was one of the biggest things, is they couldn't figure out how to stop it. Wow. They couldn't figure out why it was happening. And the main takeaway that researchers found when observing it, when they came to try to cure it, the doctors of the time, they accounted that they were clearly in pain, but they couldn't stop. And it is hard to know what they viewed as dancing. Like, were they seizing? You know,
it sounds like they were like convulsing. Yes. And like, you know,
right. But the only time they stopped is when they would collapse from fatigue, pass out, and get back up and begin convulsing again, or die.
Yeah, and so they would die from this.
Yeah, many did. Hell, if I was there, even with the knowledge I have today, I would think it was some sort of weird possession.
Yeah,
like,
for
I
sure.
wouldn't. It doesn't. It's not a shock to us, the measures that they begin to take, you know, in fear that the devil is on earth. We're still kind of in that period, and where the belief is still that the devil could very much be present on earth.
Everything I learned about like the Dark Ages, the Middle Ages, medieval, like I want literally nothing to do with any of it.
Yeah. I think it's sometimes romanticized, but I do feel like a lot of people, you know, if you were to ask, when would you want to live?
Not this one.
I feel like a lot of people are like, definitely not the Middle Ages. Definitely not the Dark Ages.
Sounds awful.
Now, the funny thing is, and this is another tie-in to our witch episode, there was a environmental and seasonal pattern to a lot of these outbreaks of the plague, the mania. And we see these almost always popping up in the summer between July and August. We are still in the Little Ice Age. However, summer still happened. And although it wasn't as hot as it is present day, or that it normally was outside of an ice age, it was still warmer. Okay. So rise in temperature, if we know a little bit about science, hot, wet places.
Sounds familiar.
AKA my favorite place to be. Hot, wet, warm places, okay, are a breeding ground for bacteria and infection. So this ties into one of the other theories that they have based off the fact that these spiked during warmer periods, during those summer seasons. And another trend we have is this was almost always aligned with the peasant class. We kind of touched on that a little bit already. But a lot of the cases that we see were among groups of peasants. That's also not a shock, because we know that the elites were very removed from sometimes the like communities as a whole. They were within their own little communities.
Their four walls, literally.
Seriously, yes. So they were like kind of huddled within their own elite communities. But they were still very separate. They lived far from each other. They stayed with their families. And again, this is not just like a mental delusion. This is a genuine kind of disease. So for that to be transmitted, you have to be kind of in close quarters with large groups of people, like the peasant class was.
I'm honestly kind of obsessed with us doing a topic that isn't totally explained already. Like, I mean, you guys know we have incredible sources for every single episode. Like, our research team, Rachel and Jacob and Delaney, like, do so good. And we really try to pick topics that we have a ton of documentation for. But my wheels are turning. This whole episode, I'm trying to figure it out.
Right.
The fact that it's not 100% solved yet, like cold case, I'm over here being like, maybe it's a brain-eating amoeba.
That's what I've always thought.
Or I'm like, okay, so here are the facts at play. Near a river, mostly affected the lower class. I'm like trying to figure it out.
Warm periods, right? Like all these facts together.
Yeah. Wait, you guys like comment on Spotify or like on our TikToks what you think it was, because like I feel like by the end of this I'm gonna have a lot of theories.
Now, there was this idea of it being a cultural contagion. So again, we've said that this continues to happen around the same areas. And the only areas that we see this popping up in, aside from it being near the Rhine and in Europe, it was popping up in places where people already believed in a dancing curse, whether that was spiritually, religiously, whatever they thought it was. So places outside of this belief, places that were like, that's not a thing, it's not talked about, nobody feared that, we actually don't see outbreaks happening there. So that could be because they had seen it in the place before they believed in it. Was that a prior belief? We don't have documentation of that. But again, yet another mystery to solve within the realm of the historic world.
I wonder too, like, you can see the same thing and call it something different. So like they could have called that demonic possession and witchcraft in a different area, and then all of a sudden it's called dancing, because it doesn't sound like they were dancing. Obviously, they're not over here doing no renegade,
right?
But it sounds like maybe also they were kind of just like calling it the same thing in the same areas. Who knows? I also, okay, I'm getting a little off track here, but guess what, guys? It's my podcast. Well, it's our podcast.
It's our podcast,
but I can say whatever I want. I wonder too, like there's so many studies of like really niche outbreaks that are attributed to like weird mineral deposits in very niche areas, or like the way the ozone is configured, or like gravity. Like there's all these like random things that happen due to like some very, very regionalized occurrence. So I'm like, I don't know, maybe there's like a lot of lead in the ground or I don't know.
Yeah, Kendall, I think you're going to love the explanations we have to come.
She's telling me to shut up. She's like, conspiracy theorist.
Yes, we actually
sit tight.
We actually have a lot of theories to get through.
Oh, the wheels are turning.
Yeah, and they're very scientifically backed. So
everyone go wish Delaney a happy birthday also. Her birthday was yesterday. It was the 24th. So, hey, she's 21 now.
Hey, get lit.
We're actually hammered right now.
Bartender. Now, let's get to Strasbourg as a whole. We've talked a lot about the whole idea of the dancing plague, Europe kind of as a whole with these outbreaks.
All my conspiracy theories.
Right. But in Strasbourg specifically, 1518, Strasbourg, their climate was pretty, and when I say climate, I'm talking social, I'm talking political and environmental. So it was a mix of medieval and modern times. So, well, and I don't say modern as in 20th century, more so we are in the age of transition out of the medieval time period. This includes the establishments of guilds and merchants. These are specific areas for work. And with the development of these and kind of the pushing out of old guild systems, we have a late medieval shift of power from nobility to craftsmen and traders.
Capitalism.
Woo! So previously, again, the rich merchants kind of held, again, the rich nobility merchants held kind of all control over these guild systems and what was being imported, exported, crafted, created, etc. And we're now shifting into the world of craftsmen and the world of traders.
It sounds like maybe like a little bit of a opening up of like social and economic mobility a little bit.
Yeah, 100%.
Like loosening the reins just a tad.
Yeah, and about a century before we see this epidemic pop up, we have the reorganization of Strasbourg's elite and their governing body. Reminder, Holy Roman Empire. So if you remember the terms patricians and plebeians, the patricians, the top of the top, began to lose power. And they began to slowly kind of rebuild that power, that gain, and that control between 1461 to 1509. What this essentially means is there's a bit of political disorganization, maybe a little bit of chaos we can call it, from the nobility class. If we know anything about history, we know when the rich and powerful don't have control, they go fucking crazy. And that's kind of what's beginning to happen. So the point I'm trying to get across here is shit was hitting the fan in a lot of different ways. We have a high environmental crisis going on. We have the Little Ice Age, flooding, failed harvests, famines. As a result of that, we have peasant revolts. And because of this political instability, a lot of the aid to the poor, to the peasant class, was cut off.
I was wondering how it was all going to come together, but I think that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. And going into the summer of 1518, when our plague begins to start, it was unusually hot. Again, we are in a little ice age. And so to have like a heat spike was not abnormal. The little ice age was so weird. It was so back and forth. It doesn't just mean everything froze over and it was cold. It was an environmental crisis of back and forth, up and down. And it really affected everywhere differently. Now, on the eve of the Strasbourg dancing plague, Frau Troffea steps into a Strasbourg street market and square, and she begins to dance.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the show. If you guys are from New York, that's the guys that get on the subway, the doors open, and then right when they shut, you just hear, ladies and gentlemen, the show is about to begin. And everyone's like, God damn it. They're really good, so it is entertaining, but like sometimes you just don't want someone flipping in your train car.
Yeah.
You're like, you know what, I had a shitty day.
I honestly felt this was like weird. This was a crazed woman dancing in the streets for 6 days.
This would happen in New York City and like literally no one would say anything.
No one would bat an eye.
Somewhere in New York City this is happening right now.
And no music, no obvious reason. She's like dancing erratically for 6 days straight, day and night, until she eventually collapses from exhaustion, gets up, and continues dancing.
That is commitment. That's what my dance coach wanted out of me.
Yeah. Oh, seriously. Yeah.
She used to say before competitions, if you don't feel like you have to throw up afterwards, you didn't go hard enough.
Yeah, mine would say, don't drink the smoothies before because then you'll throw up.
That actually sounds like way healthier boundaries than mine.
It actually was.
Yeah, and mine used to say, make sure to hydrate. Or else.
But initially, people thought she was faking it. And I love this part. I love historical gossip. Take me back. Not to that age, but people thought that she was faking it to annoy her husband. Because apparently, and I quote, nothing annoyed him more than dancing.
That's so funny. I love when people, there's like a whole, I don't know, I saw some like post once that was like a list of people that had done very chaotically neutral things to annoy people that they had been like, that like cheated on them or something.
Oh,
like
I
this
did
one
something bad.
Oh, wait, what did you do?
I don't know if I should admit it on here.
Do it.
I don't think he listens.
This is like a female-only podcast.
I signed. No, this is bad. Like,
Say
I
it.
don't know. Maybe we keep this and maybe we don't.
Say it.
I signed my ex up I like signed him up for border control for the Army, for the Navy, for the Air Force. And
you said he was like interested in signing up for these things.
I put his email, his number, his address, all of his information in, so
that's
he would
fraud.
get flooded. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Maybe I don't admit it, but so he would get like flooded with like phone calls and stuff from enlistment people, and he ended up like posting it on his story and was like, "Bro, the Army wants me so bad." Narcissist. Yeah.
That's so funny. I saw this one woman, she got cheated on, and she still had a copy of the keys to this guy's car. And so every single day she would go to his work, and he had like a big parking lot, and she would move the car to a different parking spot. And she did this for like months just to fuck with him. Like he just iconic. Silently like always thought he was going crazy.
Wait, I love that. Yeah, and I feel like that's kind of what was happening to Frau Troffea because although she could have been dancing just to piss off her husband, the town eventually realized that this was out of her control. They like realized she was in pain, she was in suffering, and that something was a little off.
Interesting that it was like in a public space though.
Right, yeah, it was in like a town square that this was occurring. And by mid-August, so again, this begins around July 14th or the 22nd. We have accounts of both. But by mid-August, hundreds of people have now contracted this disease, this plague, and are dancing uncontrollably.
I'm just like trying to really like imagine the scene in my head. Like imagine you're just like going about your daily business, knowing this is going on, and then
someone's
suddenly
doing the Harlem Shake, like uncontrollably.
Suddenly someone next to you just like starts like convulsing. And then you just like are walking to go get your groceries. Well, whatever, go to the market. And then like, and you just have to pass these people that are like,
right.
Like, did they move them somewhere?
No.
Like, you know, the lepers, they like,
no one would touch them.
Wow.
From what we know. So it was, yeah, like it was either they were possessed. If you touched them, you could get possessed.
It's literally like Times Square a little bit.
Genuinely. Except literally in the 1500s and in a time of moral like questioning. It was scary. So at this point now, we have hundreds of people dancing uncontrollably in the square of Strasbourg. And now at this point, it's spread to different places. They are kind of dancing wherever the hell they were when that began, when symptoms began. And as many as 15 people on record are dying a day from exhaustion.
And like, I mean, keep in mind, proportional to like what do you think the population was?
According to the census done by the Holy Roman Empire, this was approximately 20,000 people in their population.
So like 15 people a day. Like, okay, let's do the math real quick, guys. We're going to go back to school. So 15 people a day, that's like a little over 100 people a week. That's like 5% of the population a week.
Roughly, yeah. And they weren't just dying from exhaustion. They were dying from heart attacks, from strokes, And I quote, "They simply dropped dead, and yet the dance continued on." So people were literally having strokes, having heart attacks, and these people were in such a state of mania that their husband could drop dead next to them and they would keep dancing.
Wow.
Now, it is unclear what the mental state was.
Like if they were mentally present but couldn't stop.
That is some of the theories that we have. It's some of the
how traumatic.
in some of the accounts that we have, it's like facial expressions were present, showing pain, showing grief, showing suffering.
Wow.
And yet they were not able to stop convulsing. I feel like we should honestly call it convulsing at this point because it wasn't dancing. And that's one of the big things we want to debunk in this episode is it wasn't like a lollygag jig while your son is dying in front of you from a heart attack. It was a painful experience that they could not control.
That being said, if you had to do one dance compulsively for like a week straight, what dance would you pick?
Honestly, I brought up the Harlem Shake, so like I would consider that. Oh, the Dougie, I think.
Oh my God, the Dougie. Oh my God, can you imagine? No, the Dougie.
I think the Dougie.
And I would get, this is insensitive, I would get so good at the Dougie if I did it for a week straight. I would be so cool by the end of that.
I feel like the Cupid Shuffle I could do, but I would probably go manic doing that over and over again.
Like the Cotton Eye Joe.
Oh, God,
oh my God, my left calf would be so big.
I would die. This period was so, again, well documented and very shocking to the world that we even have a lot of literary pieces coming out of this, including one poem I'm going to read.
Are you going to read it in an accent?
Read it in...
Can you do a German accent?
9?
Yeah, like a Germanic.
Yeah.
People were mad that you did
I did a German one.
Yeah, that you did a German accent instead of, you guys, we did look up Dutch accents. We were really trying.
I really tried.
Yeah, but we're a quarter German and it slips through.
Many of hundreds in Strasbourg began to dance and to hop, the women and the men. In the public markets, in the alleys and the streets, day and night, many of them ate nothing until the last sickness left them. This affliction was called Saint Vitus's dance. Saint Vitus was a Christian saint, 13-year-old boy martyred by Diocletian.
This is, you guys, the more episodes we do, the more crossover there is, and I'm kind of obsessed with it. So we talked about...
Strips her naked and he throws her in a brothel.
Sounds familiar.
Sounds familiar, doesn't it? Yeah, he kind of did the same thing to Vitus over here. Saint Vitus, he's considered the patron saint of those afflicted with a dancing plague. Like that is what he ended up being sainted with. Not for, but with. And so people in the 16th century believed that he could curse them with uncontrolled dancing, and or that a cure for the curse could be found at his shrine. So that's another one of the terms: dancing plague, dancing mania, or St. Vitus's dance, or St. John's dance, depending on the region. Some of the various things that it was known for at the time. They didn't call it the dancing plague back then. They didn't call it the dancing mania. It was either St. Vitus's dance or St. John's dance.
Okay, so obviously like mass hysteria. Did the government or like any sort of power structure, the church, like did anyone do anything about this like organizationally?
They didn't know exactly what to do. They had a few beliefs, and what cracks me up is that in our documents, their initial approach was not to punish, but to manage.
We've heard that before.
Right, and you're kind of like, why would they punish? Like, why?
Because they thought it was the devil.
That and or a curse from St. Vitus.
Oh, so it's like...
It was a curse.
It was like, oh, well, if someone's punishing you, you must have done something wrong already.
Exactly.
We just like don't know about it.
Right. And so they kind of thought maybe they just need to dance it out. They need to keep dancing to repent, as penance, as who knows what. But they did make arrangements for them to dance in 2 marketplaces.
Flash mob.
Right? They're like, okay, we're going to set up some music and some banners. No, guys, we're actually genuinely not kidding here. They constructed stages. They brought in drummers, pipers, and musicians.
They were like, let's just make this look intentional at this point.
Yeah.
Wait, but I thought it was contagious.
We know now that things like this are contagious. Again, this was not a disease. This was a curse to them. Oh. So we know now that it could have been contracted because of close contact.
We think it was a plague. They were not thinking, oh, this is the new bubonic plague. No. They were thinking, this is the wrath of God.
Exactly.
Interesting.
Yeah. And so, yeah, and I quote, persons were specifically appointed to dance with them for payment to the music of drums and pipes, but this was of no avail, and many danced themselves to death. So as all this escalated, authorities and physicians began to really dissect what's going on. And like we've said, previous to all of this, the idea was this was a curse. This was because of sin. This was the implications of their own doing. However, as they began to bring more physicians in, they began to bring more knowledgeable authorities into play here. They began to build theories that this was more of a plague-like disease than a sin, like we think of today.
It is funny because, like, earlier in this episode when you were describing it, I was literally about to joke. I'm like, it sounds biblical. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, wow, like, even my first reaction to this, me in modern times with the knowledge of modern medicine, my very first thought was like, this shit sounds biblical.
And it still remains biblical. Even once they start to take a more scientific approach to everything, the measures that they take are still pretty religiously backed and or spiritually tied. So one of the first things they do is they put a ban on music. So initially they had moved them all into a place. They provided the music. They thought, okay, they just need to dance it out. They need to keep dancing. Let's give them some music to dance.
And maybe like God's will.
Yeah.
He wants this to happen.
Exactly. After that didn't work, it got worse. They're like, wait, this might be a disease. Like, this actually might be something real. They put a ban on music. They banned drums and pipes are forbidden within the town squares, forbidden to be played in public spaces out of fear that this could cause more dancing. On August 10th, 1518, they issue a decree that every person must take care of his own people, meaning that the kind of smaller authorities that watched over these guilds, these sections of Strasbourg, had to keep a close eye out for what's going on if anybody was beginning to dance uncontrollably. And therefore, if they did notice that, they must send them to St. Vitus.
Can you define a guild for everyone?
A guild was essentially a section or a sector that were heavily controlled and heavily controlling. Now, this could be a furniture guild, a tapestry guild, a bakery, a food guild, and the guilds controlled the trade within a town. They set the standards of it, they regulated the competition, and they provided each guild with social and economic benefits. So some guilds were kind of higher up than the others. They made more profit. They were more important, more vital to the community and to the economy of that town, city, empire, etc.
I get it. So it's almost kind of like a trade union in a way that it's like looking after its own, and they all kind of like are part of the same trade or craft or product, and then a little bit of like cartel sort of where they are controlling the supply of the good, and like there's some leader that's kind of like controlling all the supply, and it all goes through the guild.
Yes, and you lived in your guild that you were part of. That was your community. And again, that was also your social identity. So some guilds were kind of higher nobility guilds. That would be more typically the tapestry guilds. Again, the more that you were supplying to the noble class, the more benefits that you would receive from that, because in their minds, you were more vital to them and therefore to the community as a whole.
Interesting. So given that they're kind of like in little ecosystems and they have social classes and social responsibility and stuff to the guild. Okay, so then the church gives this decree being like, hey, everyone needs to like take care of their own.
Yes. And it was their responsibility to then take them to the shrine of St. Vitus, and they began to organize them in guild halls specific for each guild, for each segment of the community. And eventually, the people erratically dancing start to receive small crosses and red shoes in an attempt to scare away whatever this was infecting them, demon, disease, etc. They didn't know. And they were anointed, they were consecrated with oil and sprinkled with holy water. Again, all in attempts to expel possession, to expel demonic intervention, to expel anything demonic going on. And they also have them attend mass and rituals that are dedicated to St. Vitus. Again, the person that they think is causing this curse, causing the plague. And we have some record that some people were said to be cured from this. Was this a progression of time? Did the disease ward itself out? Who knows? But they did believe that this was partially a solution and an initial cure.
Yeah. Okay, so it sounds like at the time they were like very convinced that this was like religious, be it a saint or the devil. As time went on and we advanced in different ways and we like got a little bit more cultured, like what were some of the other theories that people were coming up with about this?
So one of our first kind of scientific theories we get is from Paracelsus, and he creates kind of this invention of choreomania. Now, Paracelsus, an alchemist, a physician, an astrologer, he was a very weird early modern guy. So we come out of medieval period, we're in the early modern, and he lived a very odd life. He connected with reformers like Martin Luther, but he remained an unorthodox Catholic, and his main focuses of study were in disease that were caused by the spirit and the imagination.
Which is, by the way, what all doctors think that all women's ailments are.
Yeah.
They're literally like, it is all in your head, chica.
And he practiced with chemical cures, alchemy, magic, demonology, and kind of took a more spiritual approach to healthcare, I guess we could say. He was one of the very first to view this contagious dancing as a disease and initially coined the term choreomania.
What time period is this now?
We're in the early modern time period, and I know that that's kind of like a term I threw around a lot in the witch episode, in this episode, and what that essentially means is it's the time periods from 15th century through the 18th century, quite a long period of time, but essentially you can think of it as kind of the transition out of the medieval time period into what we'll eventually get to in the Renaissance. So it's that kind of early modern, it's that little transition point. So where Paracelsus lies in this period, he's born in 1493 in Switzerland and he dies 1541. And again, as a reminder, our Strasbourg plague outbreak is 1518. So this happens while he's alive, and he begins to study it right during the aftermath, is what we have in our records. Now, Paracelsus ties a strong link between sin and the dancing mania. And he, and I quote, said, "Those afflicted speak of God without knowing him and digress from his given path." So this whole concept of like loose body movement, loose dancing was seen as created by the devil and sinful in its own act. And so basically his concept was they're all sinners, and this dance is a consequence of that. It was a consequence of their own actions, and that's the beginning of his theory.
Very Germanic, by the way. God forbid you are not rigid and uptight.
Yeah. And of course, shocker, shocker, he blames first the immoral living, okay, of weak will. Also very German. He blames the weak-minded, the sinful people. He puts an extreme emphasis on women and minstrels. So the jokers, the jests within nobility, within palaces and stuff. Somewhat the unserious people, which obviously includes women in this time period. And just to quote Paracelsus himself, "Why whores and scoundrels who take pleasure in guitar and lute playing, who satisfy all voluptuousnesses, bodily pleasure, imagination, and fantasy, never escape but become ill in such a way that they jump and dance, thus applying what has been their occupation. This dance, which we find in whores, does not come from nature, nor have a natural cause," bold Paracelsus, "but it comes from reckless and disgraceful living in which there is neither reason nor sense. So it's their fault.
So, okay, we know what he thinks caused it. What is this guy thinking is the cure then? Or does he even care about a cure if it's just like the lower class?
Yeah, he operates on a concept of zero mercy. Shuts patients in a dark or unpleasant place. He makes them fast on bread and water. He believes that this starving, this hunger, will change their nature. Now, another cure he comes up with is throwing them into cold water.
We got to stop drowning people.
Shock it out of them.
We got to stop it.
Yeah, I agree. They did that to the witches too.
Yeah.
Now, he adds some more like medical backing to his theory. He says that it could have come from overheated or burned blood or an excess of blood. They were weird with blood at this time.
Obsessed.
They would drain you of it or so he would try to treat that through cooling the blood, sweating it out, or even more dancing.
You'll never believe this.
Yeah, to expel the residue. So he was like, okay, I'm either going to throw you into cold water, cool the blood down. Next, I'm going to put you in a dark room while you dry off. Next, you're going to come out, start dancing again. Okay, expel that bitch out of your body. Did this work?
This is giving Barry's boot camp.
Yeah. Yeah, seriously. Now, Paracelsus was a raging misogynist, as we've kind of
shocker
picked up, right? And his theory is kind of the bridge between sin, body, and pseudoscience. So it's kind of all of those combined. Whereas some of our other theories we go into pick one or the other. Paracelsus, he combined these theories and bridged the divide. Oh, thank God for him. Dick.
Clearly he was wrong. I'm wondering who got a little closer.
The modern people did, as we could suspect. So one of the first kind of modern theories that we have is essentially taking the facts that we have at hand and actually thinking rationally about it. So we know that because of the environmental factors, the harvests, the famines, syphilis outbreaks, leprosy, plague, smallpox, all these things, that people were not well enough recovered. And we know that peasants got hit with all of these factors the hardest. And so this left them malnourished. It left them crowded, constantly scared. And so the beginning of the belief is that they were so weak that this could have caused a manic state. Now, this isn't the only kind of explanation, but it's kind of the foundation they begin to build their other theories upon, is like, hey, keep in mind, these people were not well mentally, physically, emotionally, economically, socially, any of it.
I could see, I'm a full believer in psychosomatic issues, and if you believe that this could happen to you, mania, I guess, could be expressed in so many ways, but you have to have a seed in there. And I could see how this mania could have manifested differently if they had different, they could have believed that they were vampires. And then when the brain switched over to be so illogical, that's the seed that was in there. And so I could see how this, it only happened in places where they believed in it. So it's there was mania, and then the way that was expressed was what they were fearing.
Well, exactly. And Justice Hecker in 1832 deems it a mental plague.
Yeah, I can see that.
Building off that, he kind of uses the records from medieval doctors, priests, news sources to argue that it was largely a psychological condition spreading through suggestion and social pressure. So again, these people are, to use Paracelsus' terms, weak-minded. They are fragile. They are
weak-minded because they were so beaten down by the environment.
Not naturally weak-minded.
Yeah, because they were hungry. I mean, guys, I'm hungry right now. I'm about to start dancing.
Yeah. No, seriously. And so, yeah, it was kind of this, one person starts doing it. We see that with witch crazes, too, is, children start being she's a witch. She's a witch. You're a witch.
It's just desperate.
Yeah, yeah. And modern historians like John Waller very much emphasize the impact of stress-induced hysteria that was triggered by the St. Vitus's superstition.
Mental breaks are a thing, absolutely, and they're stress-induced.
Now, there's also the mirror neuron theory, which essentially is seeing someone perform an action activates similar regions in your own brain.
Wow.
So kind of monkey see, monkey do.
Almost like a tick, sort of.
Yeah. So it's called reciprocal imitation, and essentially in groups could make movements spread like an infection.
Oh, this is a science podcast.
Oh, yeah.
Welcome to Spilled Science.
And so even people that were hard of hearing and or deaf were also affected by the dancing plague. So they kind of took out the factor of music being a big factor in it.
Oh, okay. That makes sense.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
And so this was a visual neurological, quote unquote, infection versus just being triggered by a sensory output.
Yeah.
Now, the most...
How funny would it actually have been if that woman that started it really was just trying to piss off her husband? And then all these neurons started firing and everyone was like, oh my God, she's crazy. And then like, because obviously it has to start somewhere.
Yeah.
Like this woman could have just been fucking with her husband. And then it was mass hysteria. And then it was mirroring neurons or whatever the fuck.
No, seriously.
I was like, oh shit.
Well, and there's another... Guys, there's so many theories. As I told you guys in the beginning, there's a lot of theories for what happened. But one of the ones that's, I would say, most scientifically backed and what a lot of historians have accepted to this day is ergotism. So ergot is a fungus that grows on rye, the grain, which if you know Germany, you know we love our rye bread. And this fungus grows on the rye grain in cold and damp conditions, like the Little Ice Age. Now, there's two branches of this specific type of fungus. So there's the gangria or the gangrenous portion and the convulsive. So the gangrenous causes nausea, limb pain, extremities to turn black, miscarriages. Now, the convulsive portion of this ergot fungus is called St. Vitus's dance. Causes seizures, spasms, hallucinations, mania, and psychosis.
How crazy that a fungus can do that.
Right? And
I'm blaming that now.
Right? And so this could also, so this whole ergot poisoning theory really explains the convulsions, the hallucinations, the bizarre behavior, but also why the outbreaks were hitting malnourished populations who were forced to only eat cheap rye.
Yeah. Well, that's why I'm gluten-free.
Yep. So it doesn't explain everything, but some portions of the specific things that we see associated with the dancing plague.
I like that theory the best. Or my brain-eating amoeba one.
Right. I mean, that kind of is. Like, it's like a fungus.
Actually, so true.
Yeah. So, not to freak everybody out, but there are theories that this is something that still happens today.
I could see it.
Minorly.
Like pack mentality.
Today it might look like a burnout. It might look like doom scrolling. It might look like viral little ticks.
The ticks I could totally see. I mean, like, especially with the mirroring thing. Like, for example, I watched so much Love Island one season where I think this is very interesting. One of the characters kind of looked like me a little bit. In that a random girl in DC came up to me and told me I looked like her, and I was really flattered. Paige, Love Island UK, maybe like 3 years ago. We like sort of look similar, not really, but I think I identified with her, and like almost watching her felt a little as close as anyone else, like a reflection of myself. I picked up on some of the facial mannerisms she did throughout the show. Like, she did this specific thing with her tongue. I literally, for the next 6 months, would do that. Yeah. And I thought it was interesting that I picked it up from someone that I thought I looked sort of similar to.
Yeah.
But you see it online with different tics and different, like...
Well, it's that and, like, kind of the vocal stems we all talk about. Like, if someone's like, la boo boo, I will be in the corner la boo booing for an hour. Everyone's different with those things, but I do feel like it's a chain reaction, depending on your society, depending on like who you're centered around. All of my roommates, one person, pumpkin, and we are all doing that for an hour. So
yeah, I feel like the brain is so susceptible and it really craves community and like belonging, sort of, in a way that like makes us all kind of try to blend.
And so we know that what happened to them was a lot more catastrophic. Mm-hmm. It was more damaging, and they lacked the control that we have due to science, due to medicine, now. But in short, the dancing plague was somewhat completely opposite to what people really think it was.
It wasn't contagious.
It wasn't contagious. They weren't really dancing, like fun dance moves. This wasn't something they can control. It wasn't fun.
People died.
Many people died. It wasn't festive. And it's not how media portrays them as everyone in a Times Square like, woo, day and night, and they're drunk and they're partying.
And there's music.
Right. We had periods of when they tried to cure it through music and through removing it and such. But this was a true plague.
This really was a plague by definition of like mass death and mass impact. It was a plague, but it was like, seems like very psychological.
And with that, we really hope that you guys learned something new today, and maybe this broadened your horizon of a historical topic that you've heard of before. You've maybe seen depictions of it in the past, and maybe it confused the hell out of you like it has historians for centuries. But we hope that this episode cleared some misconceptions up and explained the unexplainable. So, Kendall, what is your dinner party takeaway for this episode?
I don't think I realized that fungus could have such insane impacts. Like, I kind of figured, okay, you can like get sick, but seizures, convulsions, hallucinations, I just like, I don't know, I guess I didn't, I mean, I know that it can kill you, but
right.
Yeah, I don't know. I thought that was very interesting.
Yeah.
That like little tidbit.
No, me too.
Like that is one of the leading theories that like they were just eating a bunch of rye bread with this fungus on it. It's like almost the most ridiculous theory. And I like that that's kind of, it seems like one of the leading ones.
Yeah. I love it.
Great. Well, thank you guys so much for listening to another episode. Please, you little rats, I figured out only 50% of you that listen to the episode are even following it. So we are watching that number. Make sure you're subscribed or following or whatever your platform is. Like I said, I check that shit every day. So
every day.
If you guys think this is really interesting, share it with a friend. Share with a friend that like honestly might not care about history, someone that's got way too much time on their hands or goes on long walks or goes on long drives. We love when you guys, like as someone commented recently that they listened to it with their friends, and that was like the most special thing in the world to me. So we love when that happens. Share it. We will catch you guys in 2 Tuesdays.
We want to wish everybody in the States a happy Thanksgiving. Fret not. We will have an exciting post-Thanksgiving episode coming out in 2 Tuesdays from now.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you so much for listening. Spilled is produced with the help of our team, Rachel Stout, Jacob Regner, and Soraya Fofana.